Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to look at recent sales for the Power of the Force 2 line of action figures that came out from 1995 to about 2000. And I'm doing something a little differently than I usually do for my market updates. I'm including at the end of this video a few items that did sell on Facebook. And I've found that for the Power of the Force 2 line, the really cool stuff, the really rare stuff tends to sell on Facebook, not on eBay. So I don't want to include too much information because I feel like Facebook, it's kind of showing people's names and things like that. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful about showing Facebook items regularly. You know, occasionally when Chris W. over at Rogue 5 Toys gets in big collections and he wants me to show you guys so you can know that stuff is for sale and what's coming and things like that, I'll do a Facebook update. But I very rarely do stuff that's on Facebook and some of the other groups that I'm a member of, just for privacy reasons. So I've had that request many times, but just understand that I don't want to show people's names as much as possible. So I'm going to show pictures. There might be a couple of names here and there from the sellers, but these are really rare items that I think that you would just like to see. And, just keep that in mind, is that, I don't try to do this very often, but I wanted to show you a few that did sell because they are rare. Most of these are eBay sales though. So let's go ahead and dig in. Lots of autographs in this, in this video, but, first is a Collection 2 Tusken Raider. And this one has what's called the error with the open hand. And you can see there that the Tusken Raider sometimes has a closed hand and sometimes has the open hand. I actually consider this to be the non-error. And maybe you guys can correct me. Black Dot Ewoks, who's a YouTuber, he knows more about the Power of the Force 2 line than I'll ever know. Maybe he can chime in the comments, but there's a open hand like this one, and there's also one where the whole hand is closed, and you can't actually get the gaffy stick to go into his hand. I consider that to be the error. It's listed as the open hand error in the listing, but I'm pretty sure that this is the correct version. And then the other hand is always painted shut, to my knowledge. So you can see there that his right hand is kind of painted shut, but this hand is open. But there are some where that left hand is fully closed and you can't even get the gaffy stick in. So anyway, this one did sell for $100, but again, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this. Pretty cool looking example there. Next up is the freeze frame action slide Weequay. This is on the US card and is considered one of the mini grails for the Power of the Force 2 line, and is usually one of the more expensive standard retail mint on card figures. This one sold for $200, and that seems to be about the going rate these days. There was another one that sold for about the same price back in November. And you can also find the freeze frame action slide on the Canadian card back that has, the French language on the card. That one is also sought after, but not as rare or as sought after as the US freeze frame. So just keep that in mind, is that if you see one on eBay and it's the Canadian card back with the French language, that one usually goes for a little bit less, like $100, $125. But the freeze frame action slide Weequay, this used to be even more expensive, believe it or not, but $200 for a near mint example is about the going rate right now. I found two different data points. Here is another one that we talk about a lot, and that is when there is the larger inner tray for the lightsaber for certain figures, but it's packed in with the revised smaller lightsaber. So this is this small lightsaber with the longer tray variant. Short saber LT, which is long tray variant. And you can see that's how it's titled in this auction. And this is for Darth Vader on the US card. That one sold for $80. There's also a tri-logo version that has the short saber long tray. I'm sure there's other variants out there. You can find this for the Luke Farm Boy on the US card, which is the most expensive, as well as on the tri-logo. And you can find it for the Luke Dagobah, which is inexpensive. Luke X-Wing. There's also a very rare Obi-Wan Kenobi short saber long tray that I've seen on Facebook, so I know exists, but there's like 1 or 2 or 3 examples total out there. So very, very rare item. And there are high-end collectors that know everything and any kind of variation that there exists for these Power of the Force 2 figures. But anyway, this one is a short saber long tray US card for Darth Vader. That one did sell for $80. On to some autographs. We've got Salacious Crumb and Ula 2-pack, and this was just the standard retail release that I believe was a mail away. I believe that was a mail away example, but that was packed, or this was sold, excuse me, with a framed picture of Ula signed by the actress, and she has not aged hardly at all. It's crazy how great she looks still. This was a Toy Expo exclusive, so it looks like it was kind of like a wrap around the mail away version, and they made it into a toy, a Toy Expo exclusive. So International Collectible Toy Expo from 1998, and it was a numbered edition of 1,000. This was number 620 in the set. So there you go on that one. That one did sell for $120. Billy D. Williams signed Lando with a yellowed blister. You don't see many Power of the Force 2 that have yellowed. This one did yellow, unfortunately. Billy D's got a great signature there. That sold for $125. Here was another error for Boba Fett that I hadn't seen before. This was shown next to a correct version, but you can see very clearly there that it's kind of like the vintage collection version. I think it was VC 286, 85, somewhere in there. Boba Fett was missing his Wookiee braids. So this one was packed in without the Wookiee braids, and the price did not show up when I pulled it up, but when the closed listing showed up, I think it sold for $150. And this was, just a factory error where the Wookiee braids were not packed in on the figure. And again, I think that sold for about $150. Next up, I've got some Jeremy Bulloch signed Power of the Force 2 that Gold Star Tech had at auction. A number of my Patreon supporters did pick up many of these. This one is just a standard red card signed by Jeremy Bulloch, clear blister, very nice example. That one sold in an auction for $95. Here was another one that had a slightly yellowed blister. Again, a red card, Jeremy Bulloch signed. That one sold for $66. So you can see there that the blister is very slightly yellowed relative to this one that was a clear blister. So that's why it sold for a little bit less. Here was another Toy Expo exclusive. It's got individually numbered for collectability on the front there. International Collectible Toy Expo, and it was numbered exclusive edition, and it has Jeremy Bulloch's actor, his actually, picture there, where usually Boba Fett's picture is shown. And there are a number of different Boba Fetts that have all kinds of different sticker variations. This is a fairly common one. It's still sold for $174 though. I say common, it's usually more expensive than just a standard retail release like the red cards that we just showed. So there's a Philly Toy Expo. There's a number of Japanese expos that have different variations for the card backs, but I did want to show that one, $175. This one was kind of a funny one. So this one was kind of modified after the fact, I believe. And it says Sarlacc Survival Boba Fett with Sarlacc Tentacle Trophy and Seared Flesh. And I thought it was hilarious because, this is very clearly a custom character. And it was kind of like repacked. You can see there the blister is kind of resealed. But they added like a weird net there. Along with a tongue from, or, a tentacle from the Sarlacc pit. And the character had been modified to have his leg have seared flesh. His arms got seared flesh. It's almost like zombie apocalypse Boba Fett. And his face is all messed up. So I just thought that was a pretty hilarious custom that someone had signed there by Jeremy Bulloch. And that one sold for $89. Next up, we have one of the theater edition Luke Jedis that we talk about in other videos. This was a UKG 85% theater edition, and these were handed out at theaters when the special edition version of Return of the Jedi was re-released in theaters. And you can see their special edition UKG 85. And why did it go for so much money? It sold for 140 pounds, which is $175 in an auction. And the reason is that there were many of these that were, handed out in theaters, number one, you get a lot of people that got those in theaters that just threw them away or opened them. But the ones that kept them, unfortunately, the seal around the blister was really weak and they would just fall off the blister. I've even seen AFA graded examples where it's fallen off the blister. So they're very tough to find in high grade where the blister is actually appropriately still sealed. And this is one of them. And I don't know what it was. It was just kind of a weird factory issue. It's kind of like the HasLab Vintage Collection Katana pack-in of the Power of the Force Yak Face, where that blister can just pop off really easily. And this is a case where that happened a lot for this special edition, theater edition version of Luke Jedi. So to get one in high grade is very tough to do. And as a result, they do go for a lot of money. So that one did sell for $175 US. Next up, one of my Patreon supporters did pick this one up. This is a Mark Hamill signed Luke Dagobah landing. Luke and Dagobah fatigues. I got it mixed up with VC44 Luke Dagobah landing. This is the Luke Dagobah Power of the Force 2 figure signed by Mark Hamill. That's absolutely Mark Hamill's signature. He's pretty well known signature at this point. And he doesn't do a lot of signatures. And as a result, his signature is very expensive. This one did sell for $365, which I would actually argue is a pretty good deal. Usually, Mark Hamill signed action figures or comic books, they can go for $500 or more. And I mean, I bid on a comic book that was signed by Mark Hamill that went for over $1,000. So it's very, very expensive. And I was nowhere close on my final bid price. But that was a pretty cool example there, signed by Mark Hamill. Likewise, his sister, Carrie Fisher, on a Power of the Force Princess Leia Organa. And that's another one that's pretty pricey just because she's passed away. This was a pretty cool example there. And it says it sold for $400, but a Patreon supporter picked this up. I think he paid $320 is what he told me. So congrats on that one. That was a beauty. And thank you for using the eBay affiliate links, buddy. I really appreciate that. But that was a very cool Carrie Fisher sign, and then obviously the Mark Hamill sign examples. Both of those showed up within about a day of each other. So you just never know when this kind of stuff's going to happen. And I've got to be on the lookout for a signed Harrison Ford Power of the Force 2 Han Solo for him. And he would have the holy trinity of Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford. But Harrison Ford's signature is super expensive and he never signs anything. So I don't know if one will ever show up, but I'll keep an eye out for you. Next up was Kenny Baker. Kenny Baker was pretty prevalent on the convention circuit, so he's pretty easy to find. This was yet another International Collectible Toy Expo numbered example where it has his photograph on the card back, and that one sold in an auction for $108. And then my buddy Daniel over at One Stop Comic Shop, he often does get signed action figures, whether they're vintage collection or Power of the Force 2, so you can check out his other inventory. But he often does send in items to be authenticated by Collector Archive Services for their signature series yellow label. And this one is a signed Kenny Baker Power of the Force 2 card. And this one got a card 75, blister 70, figure 90 for an overall 70, signed by Kenny Baker. And I don't know why it got such a low score for the blister, but that's what it did. And that brought the overall score down to a 70, but that one did sell for $250. He also had a Michael Carter signed Bib Fortuna. This was a CAS 90 grade, 85, 90, 90, signed by, well, this one was signed by Austin St. John. Well, now this is the wrong label. He's got the wrong label on here. This is Michael Carter who portrayed Bib Fortuna, but I think he must have uploaded the incorrect CAS label photo. When you send stuff into CAS, they send you the label. So he just got it mixed up with a different listing of his. But this one is signed by Michael Carter and got the 90 grade. And that one was a beauty. That one was listed for $250. Best offer accepted on that one. Some other graded items before we dig into the Facebook items I wanted to show you. First is a Ronto with Jawa, and this is an AFA 75 plus. You never see these larger items from the Power of the Force 2 line graded, but somebody sent in a bunch of them and had them all auctioned off. This one was a 75 plus Ronto and Jawa that sold for $140. Same seller also had Luke Skywalker with the Tauntaun graded AFA 80 plus. That one sold for $135. And Jabba the Hutt and Han Solo was graded AFA 75+. This is the special edition version where Jabba the Hutt was added in to the original Star Wars film around the Millennium Falcon. I don't know if you remember that extended scene. It was kind of goofy because Jabba the Hutt looked kind of strange, but that was a special edition version that was like a 2-pack from the Power of the Force 2 line. That one sold for $135, AFA 75+. Here was the Dewback with Sand Trooper, graded AFA 80. That one sold for $135 on one bid. So you'd never see those kind of items, so I just wanted to show those. And then the last eBay item before I show you some very rare Facebook items. This one is the Princess Leia slave outfit on the freeze frame action slide, graded AFA 85. That one sold for $120. She's a pretty high demand character from the Power of the Force 2 line, especially in prototype format. Prototypes of Princess Leia, either the indoor version or the slave Leia, those typically go for over $1,000 for the first shot prototypes. But this is just a standard retail release, graded AFA 85. That sold for $120. Some Facebook items, all of these sold in the deal or no, or were at least listed in the deal or no deal group. And Matthew Incala is a friend of mine. He has an incredible pre-production or very rare Power of the Force 2 line, and occasionally he sells off his duplicates. And this one was a proof card for the Gig Italian Emperor Palpatine. So you can see it's got the Italian card back there, and it even still has the original hang tab in the card back there. And on the back, it has the Hasbro Far East signed sample attached to it with the sticker, or with the tape. And this one was a deal or no deal, and in the deal or no deal group, you could make an offer on these items, and the seller will just say deal or no deal. And this one got up to $500 and no deal accepted on this one. So $500 for a pre-production proof card from the Gig Italian market card back. So you can see there, it's got the, Italian language there, and it still has the little hang tab attached, which that's the first time I've ever seen that personally, or I've ever noticed it anyway. So that was pretty cool, but no deal at $500. Next up, we had two different Sand Trooper proof cards. First is the Tri-Logo version on the left, and on the right, it had the Gig Italian Guerra Stellare card back for the Sand Trooper. Both of those were proof cards. The Tri-Logo version had the Hasbro Far East sign samples on the back, and you can see there on the Gig Italian that it fell off. So it had the sticker residue from where the Hasbro Far East sign sample certificate was attached, but it must have fallen off at some point. So unfortunately, that one fell off. And this one, the offers got up to no deal at $300 for the pair. So neither one of those sold, but those were available in the deal or no deal group. This was a cool one. This was a 4-pack, a department store JCPenney 4-pack that included the retooled Shadows Darth Vader. And what's that, you ask? This is just the retooled version of Darth Vader where the cape kind of flared out. And you can see there, the cape is flaring out. These were JCPenney exclusives. They were retooled from the Shadows of the Empire 2-pack, where he was packed in with Prince Xizor. And he was later released on single card backs for JCPenney. Some of them showed up at retail in JCPenney. But this is the first time I've ever seen an actual 4-pack that was a department store mail-away, or, catalog 4-pack. And it included Lando Skiff, Han Solo in indoor gear, the AT-ST driver, and then Darth Vader with the retooled Shadows. And those did sell, including the original shipper box. A deal was made at $300 for that 4-pack. But that's the first time I've ever seen the entire 4-pack available for sale before. So that one did sell. Finally was a first shot prototype Power of the Force 2 skiff. This is the Tatooine skiff. This is basically uses the same mold as the original Power of the Force Tatooine skiff. It was re-released for the Power of the Force 2 line. And you can see there it has the unpainted plastic for the base of the skiff. And it was 100% complete. They are very sought after by collectors. This one was listed in December on the Deal or No Deal group, and it did sell at $1,250. So $1,250 took home the Power of the Force 2 first shot prototype Tatooine skiff. That, you know, again, it uses the exact same mold from the vintage example, but it was re-released. So very cool to see that one sell. And I just wanted to show you guys a few examples from the Deal or No Deal group. And, you know, quite honestly, the prototype exchange, Deal or No Deal, those are the, and there's also a number of Power of the Force 2 exclusive groups that where you can find the really rare stuff that you never see on eBay. So just wanted to show you a few examples there. I hope you enjoyed this look at recent sales for the Power of the Force 2 line. Thank you as always for watching. Please be sure to leave me a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back soon.